Hello, welcome to my channel. If you're new, welcome back if you're a subscriber. Today I am going to be doing a video that I've been wanting to do for a long time, and I am finally now getting it out. And it is my favorite books of 2023. So they're my recent favorite reads, and I can't wait to tell you about them. I feel like 2023 I was a little harsher on books than previous years, but I still do have a good list here. And so without further ado, let's just get into the video. So the first book I want to talk about is Little Secrets by Jennifer Hillier, and this book, it's so good. Oh my gosh, I'm obsessed with this book, which was a surprise. I've talked about this before on my channel, but I'm not always a fan of domestic thrillers, but this one is done so well. She just does it fantastically. And so this one is about a woman, and she's at this market with her son, but then he's kidnapped. And so the police are trying to figure out where he went, what happened to him, but they aren't able to discover anything. So in the future, she hires a private investigator because the case with her son has basically gone cold. And the private investigator actually finds something out about her husband, and they find out that her husband is cheating on her with this younger woman. And so she decides she wants to fix the problem. That's all I want to say. I feel like you should go into this one without knowing much of anything. I think it was so well done. I was totally gripped. I was reading this one when I was packing for moving, and I could not stop listening to it. I was gripped the whole time. It actually was very emotional for me, and I love the twists and turns it took. So I would highly recommend you check this one out, even if domestic thrillers aren't always your thing. The next book I'm going to talk about, which I'm sure you all saw coming, was House of Hunger. And oh my gosh, this book is so atmospheric. If you love this cover and want to be immersed in this world, that's what you'll get when you read this book. It is very much atmospherically driven and less plot driven. There is plot in it, definitely, and I think the plot is interesting. But the main reason I like this one is because I loved living in this world, and I didn't want the book to end. I wish this book was longer, and I never say that about books. This book is only like 288 pages long, and I just wanted it to be much longer because of how much I was enjoying it. This one is about a woman named Marion, and she is extremely poor, living in the slums, and she desperately wants out of her current living situation because she lives with her brother. He treats her horribly, and she's just very unhappy with her current life. So in this world, there are people called blood maids, and basically they are workers who will sell their blood to wealthy people, and they get to live in the castles with their wealthy employers. So she decides to actually apply for this, and she is selected. And so she goes to the north and works for this wealthy countess and becomes her blood maid. And so you're reading about what it means to be a blood maid in the society, and you're seeing how these extremely wealthy people live and the huge contrast between her old life and her current life. You're in this castle, you're meeting other blood maids, and there's some competition going on because everyone wants to be like the favorite blood maid of the countess. It's sapphic, and it's just so good. A lot of people might find this too slow, but I love the slow burn. I thought the ending was really gripping and sinister, and I loved it so much. Also, I want another book in this world because we get to learn about the House of Hunger, but there's multiple different houses and castles, and I just hope this author writes another book in this universe. I also could imagine everything as I was reading, which is something I really love. I love feeling like I'm in a movie when I'm reading, and this one definitely felt like that. The next book is actually by the same author, and it is The Year of the Witching by Alexis Henderson. So this one I was very excited to read because I started with House of Hunger, and I love that one so much, so I had very high expectations for this one. And if I had to choose between the two, it's difficult to choose. I would probably still choose House of Hunger, but this one was fantastic too, and I gave it 5 stars. This one is about a woman living in this puritanical society where women are treated very poorly, but she ends up learning that she has dark powers. And where she lives is called Bethel, and she always has been looked down on because her mother actually had her with an outsider and in a different race caste, so people have always looked down on her. But in her village, there's this dark wood surrounding it, and one day she actually goes in, even though it's forbidden, and she finds her mom's old diary and starts to learn some dark truths about the town and its history. Once again, this one was very atmospheric. I read it while I was camping, and that was such a great environment to read it in. I really love this character so much. I hope that we get more in this world. I know originally Alexis Henderson wanted to continue this series, so we'll see what happens. But there are some parts that dragged a little bit in this compared to House of Hunger, in my opinion, but I still loved it. I would say if you like Slewfoot, definitely check this one out. However, I prefer this one to Slewfoot. And if you want a very atmospheric, woodsy read that has the witch vibes too, such a good movie. Love that movie so much. I highly recommend this one. The next book is None of This Is True by Lisa Jewell. And this one was actually a book club pick for my Lights Out book club, and I had so much fun reading this one. This also has a podcast element, which is a really fun trope in books when it's really played into, and it is played into in this book. I have a pet peeve of blurbs when they're like true crime podcast element or something like that, and then it's barely explored in the book, but it's explored in this one. This one is an interesting premise because it's about this woman named Alex. She's a popular podcaster, and then she runs into a woman named Josie while they're actually both out celebrating their birthdays on June 8th. And why I mention the whole June 8th birthday twin thing is because it's really important to the story, and that is so surprising because my birthday is literally June 8th, so I was like, out of all the days it could be, love that it's June 8th. But they have a short conversation, but it doesn't lead to much. But then they run into each other another day, and Josie tells Alex, hey, my life actually might be an interesting topic for your podcast because I'm going through some changes and stuff. And so Alex starts making the podcast, but realizes very quickly that something is very strange with Josie and her life, and she starts uncovering some dark secrets. This one was so fast-paced, so quick to read. I didn't see the twist coming, and it was my first Lisa Jewell book, and I really loved it. I have heard this is probably her best book, so now I'm a little bummed about that, but I really, really love this one, and I highly suggest it if you need a quick read. So switching gears, I'm gonna talk about Gone to See the Riverman by Kristopher Triana, and this one is a very dark, extreme horror book, so if you are somebody who needs to look up trigger warnings, I would for this one, because I heard it's very disturbing, but going in, I didn't expect it to go where it went, so I just wanted to warn you all for that. But this book, oh my gosh, it was an experience reading this book, to say the least. This one is about Lori, and she's obsessed with this serial killer who's currently in prison. She actually starts writing letters to him. They start corresponding. She even visits him in prison. And during one of her visits, he actually tells her that she needs to go meet the Riverman and complete this task for him. So she agrees to do this, and she ends up bringing her sister along, and you follow their journey to try to find the Riverman. Yeah, this book, it's truly horrifying. It's disturbing, it's horrifying. It goes down a road that I was not expecting to read. You learn about the main character's past and why she is so obsessed with this serial killer, and yes, it's just a lot. And you learn this through letters that she's written to the killer. So I really like that formatting, how you get to hear her writing to the killer. And also this book, the way you view the main character from the beginning to the end is like, whoa. A lot happens. I know I'm being very vague, but I don't want to give anything away. Like I keep saying, it's incredibly haunting and disturbing, but wow, did it make a big impact on me, and I could not put this one down. I flew through it. It has a really good fall atmosphere, and I would recommend this one if this seems like something that would interest you. The next book is Girl 11 by Amy Suter Clarke. This one I waited to read for so long, and I'm kicking myself for doing that because it was so good. And this one also deals with a podcast. I would also say if you are somebody who doesn't like reading actual true crime but wants something that feels like you're reading true crime but you know it's fictional, I would highly recommend this one. That's me. I don't like reading real true crime, but this one had that true crime vibe without actually being real. And also the production of this was so good. It reminds me a lot of The Nothing Man by Catherine Ryan Howard, but a better version in my opinion. So if you enjoyed that one or you were left wanting more from that one, I would suggest checking this one out. This one is about a woman who used to be a social worker, but she left her job and now she's working as a true crime podcaster. She usually focuses on cases of missing and abducted children that have gone cold, and she's actually helped successfully solve some of these cases. But this season, she decides to focus on a killer named the Countdown Killer. This was somebody who terrorized the town 20 years in the past, and he kidnapped girls and ritualistically murdered them following a specific pattern and MO. But one day the murders just stopped, and so law enforcement thinks that he actually died. But in the present day, another child is abducted, and it definitely fits the same characteristics of this killer's killings in the past. And so this follows her trying to solve the case before it's too late, and it is so good, very, very tense, and I was very invested. The next book is another Jennifer Hillier book, and it is Jar of Hearts. And I can't decide between Jar of Hearts and Little Secrets for being my favorite Hillier book. I just can't decide. I change my mind frequently, but this one is so, so, so good, and I feel like is the one that's the most loved in general of her work. So this is about Gio, Angela, and Kai, and they were all best friends in high school, but Angela ends up disappearing in high school, and Gio hasn't revealed the truth of what actually happened that night for 14 years. And so now you're following her in the present, and Angela's body is discovered, and they realize that Calvin, this boy that Gio was actually dating in high school, was responsible for the murder. And now in the present day, new bodies are turning up in the same way that Angela was killed. And you start to learn what really happened in the past. This one is very dark, full of twists, trigger warnings, everything. It's a lot. It is emotionally a lot, but it gripped me. I had to know what happened, and I was shocked. The ending made me shocked. This one is so, so good. It's very fast paced, and I promise you, you'll fly through this book. So everything I've talked about so far, I gave 5 stars, but I want to talk about a few books that I gave 4.5 stars. And the first one, I wonder if you can guess what author it will be. It's a Jennifer Hillier book, of course, and it's called Things We Do in the Dark. So this one, I will say, reads a lot more like a mystery or a domestic suspense book, less like a thriller, but I still loved it so much. If you can't tell, Jennifer Hillier is quickly becoming one of my favorite authors of all time. So the main character in this book is named Paris, and she's actually found in her bathroom with her husband dead in the tub, and she is holding a weapon. And she is obviously suspected for his murder. And so she knows she'll be charged, but she's actually more worried about the publicity because her husband was really famous. And so since he was famous, there's lots of reporters following this story, and she's worried that things about her own past will be dug up. In this one, the characters really felt like real people. It has multiple perspectives and so much character development. That's why I said it has a lot more character development than most thrillers, but I just found it fascinating. I love the multiple storylines, and it was very, very dark. Once again, Jennifer Hillier writes very dark thrillers. Also, this one is a little slow paced, but I was captivated. Like I said, throughout this book, I had to know what was going to happen and see how everything connected. And it was so rewarding when I got to see how everything connected, which is one of my favorite elements about books. I love when there's multiple stories that you learn how they relate to each other. The next book is a YA book, and it is This Delicious Death by Kayla Cottingham. And My Dearest Darkest is by this author as well, and it's a dark academic sapphic horror book, and I love that one so much, but I love this one so much as well. I will say the relationship in My Dearest Darkest I cared a lot more about because I felt like it was more developed, whereas this one I felt like was more action driven, but there still is a sweet romance in this. But this is actually a YA cannibal book, and when I heard that, I was so curious about it. It immediately gripped my attention. I knew I had to read it. And this one is a very fast read. You can see it's not very long, and it's YA, so very quick read. And can I just say this cover is so good? Anyway, let me tell you what this book is about. It's about 4 best friends, and they go to this music festival, but one of them goes feral. And when I say one of them goes feral, what that means is they live in a world where there are ghouls, and they're basically people who can only tolerate eating human flesh. And so now scientists have created this synthetic flesh so that they're safe to, you know, be in the population and be around other people. But like I said, one goes feral and things go very, very wrong. This is a perfect summer read, and I would highly recommend it if that sounds interesting to you. All right, this last one is going to be really surprising for a lot of people because I've talked about for so long that I am not really a romance reader, not really a fantasy reader, but it's Fourth Wing. Yes, okay. So I've got to credit this book for actually getting me interested in fantasy and romantasy, to be more specific. So I'm currently reading the ACOTAR series and I am loving it. It's shocking to me. All of this is shocking to me. Like, I never thought I would read romantasy and love it, but I am. So this book has a special place in my heart because I read it, I really, really loved it. It was giving me Divergent vibes. I felt nostalgic because back in high school, I really loved Divergent. I love dystopian things, and this one is more fantasy, but it has a lot of those similar elements in it. So as I was reading this, it was really fun. This one I wouldn't say is very well written per se, but I was there for the vibes, I was there for the dragons, which again, never thought I would say, but there were really cool scenes with dragons, how they communicate with the riders in this, and I love the atmosphere in this. Also, the romance in here at times was pretty cringe, in my opinion, but it was still a fun time. So this one is about a girl named Violet, and she has been planning to go into the scribe quadrant, which is basically a quiet and peaceful career dealing with books, but now her mother has commanded her to become a candidate to be a dragon rider, which is extremely dangerous and many, many people die. So I feel like that's all you have to know. They're at a war college and there's a map in the beginning so you get to see what it looks like, which I liked. And you follow her while she's in school, and the romance is enemies to lovers, so if you like that trope, I would recommend it. I mean, I haven't read too many romance books, so I can't fully say this is like the best enemies to lovers, but if you like that, you would probably like this. And the ending of this one actually got very emotional for me, which I was surprised. So I had to mention this one. The last thing I want to mention is actually a series, and I've talked about this a lot on my channel, so I don't want to talk about it too much, but it's called the Deadly Reality TV series by Caummisar. And this is an extreme horror series about this reality game show where there'll be contestants. Imagine the X Factor or American Idol or something like that, but they're competing in how much pain they can inflict on themselves. So obviously it's very gory. It has Saw vibes, and I actually read this and thought I wouldn't ever want to watch the Saw movies, but then immediately watched the whole Saw franchise and like loved it. But like I said, it's extreme horror, but if you're interested in that kind of game show horror, I would recommend it, and they're really fast reads. All right, that's it for me for my recent favorite reads and favorite books of 2023. Let me know in the comments what your favorite books have been recently, and I will talk to you all very soon. Bye.